So I think these days there are only two sources of learning for me. One is my daughter, who is definitely a millennial. I don't know how many are there in this room. Um None. Oh, there is one. So three. So I'll be slightly careful what I say. And I think the second source is really Google. And when Esther talked about this, and I said, let me just check it out on Google what it says. And all searches landed up in not so complimentary phrases. They were phrases like 11 tips to manage them, real pain, pain for HR, and the list went on. And it seemed something I had to hide from my daughter very quickly. But I think it just brought another point as I was searching. It said that 75% of the workforce by 2025 is going to be uh, exactly this kind of talent. And therefore, do we see this as a pain or an opportunity? If you ask me, I have, in my experience, seen more of opportunity, release of energy, and I think there is a lot organizations can take away by channelizing it. And I think there comes the issue, how do we manage them? Are the existing practices going to really help them release their energy? Answer is no. Technology will play a hell of a important role. And more importantly, rewriting your processes is going to be the game. Uh, Having said that, we got people here who have organizations which are very large, have fairly large number of people coming from this segment, and there are no better people than them to answer it. So if I really ask you at a very macro level, how do you view millennials, and what do you think you need to really think about? I will just keep it very short.
So thank you so much, and I'm glad people are still coming in. It's a good sign. So I think the whole premise may be a little bit of a hoax. At the end of the day, I think millennials is a label given to a certain age group because it puts them in a box.
Yeah.
And I think it gives a lot of consulting companies a lot of consulting opportunity. I think at the end of the day, we have a workforce today which consists of people entering it at different ages. If I talk to my colleagues who are from my generation, they also want to be recognized. They also want quick feedback. They also want clear line of sight around why they're spending time on what they're spending. They would also like to get rewarded quickly and recognized, very often. So I think there is a shift in the workforce that is going on, and I think for us to sort of manage that better, possibly we've classified it as such. Having said that, I do agree with your point that the practices that have been designed, and I think we heard that in the morning as well, I think have been designed for organizations which are much more command and control and much more look like a pyramid. One of the things that we've learned at where I work today, I'm with HCL Technologies. One of the things we learned very early was that the best way to ensure that you harness the passion of people is really to invert the pyramid. And I think we've found that whenever we've done that successfully, we've been able to reshape processes and the way we work to actually to have the practices resonate better.
So, I can just add to that, Prithvi. I also worked with HCL for a short period, and I was HR head for one of their businesses. And one of the moments I used to dread when I was asked by Vineet Nair, who wrote that famous book, who was my boss, Employee First, he used to ask us to stand in front of all the employees and solve their employee ticket on the spot. And I had precisely 2 minutes at the most, and if I couldn't resolve it, I had to seek apology, and it wasn't the best of the things, best of the moments to walk away from. So I think some organizations saw that very early, like HCL, I would say, and a leader like him. Uh, and I think shifting is the word you used, reshaping in a way is the word you used. Amita, at a macro level and connecting with what Prithvi said, what do you feel?
When I look at, is this working?
Yeah.
My industry is very, very new. It's just 25 years kind of old. So most of our employees are very young and very, very creative. So I work with a TV business, broadcast and digital, broadcast business. And, one thing which I really admire about this generation is that it's a can-do, will-do generation. They are very clear. They know what they want to do. They're not scared to take risk. They are ready to disrupt and be disrupted. And I think that's where I see that organization has to shift the mindset. It's a generation also which is come up with, I always say that it's a generation which has come up in abundance. Unlike my generation, which grew up in scarcity. So in those generation, I don't know how many of you know that even if you had the money, you wanted to buy, first time when Maruti 800 was launched, there were queue for 2 years, 3 years. You wanted to get a telephone connection or a gas connection, you had to stand in a queue or pull strings to get it. And also, it was mostly government, PSU jobs, their kids, or people living in villages who were trying to get out. So there was, even from infrastructure as well as money point of view, there was a scarcity. To today's where that past generation has really worked hard to ensure that the next generation gets everything. So it's everything actually online. You don't even have to step out of your house to get it. So that's the kind of abundance which is available. And with that, how do you change your mindset? Because when I look at, and especially I'm talking about my industry, I have just last week, one of my best creative person who's been getting 200% bonuses every year, he's just 5 years in the company, wants to go. Someone wants to just go to set up, work with an NGO, someone wants to go and set up an handicraft store, someone wants to go write a story. And they don't see it as they have to be in the organization, work through a career journey, career ladder. For them, career is a wave. I will do this much, then I want to do something else, and then I want to take a break. Break could be for anything. And I think the whole, as HR leader and as leaders in the organization, we all have to really, resync the organization to that reality. And I really admire, because I wish, sometimes I actually tell people that I wish I was born today. I would have liked to do all of this which you guys are doing today. So that's my view on
I
millennial.
think few things are takeaway, and I'll connect with them. One is, I think the issue you talked about, that they take risk. There is abundance of funds available, and I'll connect that with one of my experiences in the past. We were setting up a venture capitalist fund within a company which was very manufacturing, old school, thought driven. And we put a large money on the table, and we hired a CEO for that business. And he came up saying, I want 30% of the profits. So, while they will deliver the value to you, but that's the flesh they demand. And we kind of gave away to all the demands which are there on the table. And 1 year passed, and he comes back saying, I want to switch to another business. And I said, what about building that institution and doing a long-term play? He said, 1 year is enough. I built a team. They can carry on, give you the returns. So I think those are the challenges you're facing in the middle of abundance. Where are you seeing your organization in the middle of that at a macro level, and connecting with what Prithvi and Amita are saying?
I think experience is the swag. It's the new swag. Everybody kind of wants to have that experience of new things, different things at different points of time. I work for a bank which is about 163 years old. It's a Swiss investment bank. Fortunately, unfortunately, I also head the offshoring center I am into the business side. So 3 years back from an HR role, I moved on to the business side. I head the KPO for Credit Suisse in Mumbai. 80% of our workforce is millennials, people born after 1980. I think I'm not far away from it, but 80% of them are in that group. 20% of the bank's workforce, which is Credit Suisse workforce, globally, is in the offshoring centers, which is basically in the tech space, in the creative space, in innovation space. So for me, I think it's an ecosystem that I'm seeing today, which is, people are calling it as disruptive technology, but the truth is there is a paradigm of multi-generations that you're dealing with. There are bankers who are like kind of been there for 30 years or 40 years, and then you have the new tech age where people are trying to create something new. I think it's a great opportunity for bringing these generations together and bringing in some form the strengths of each of these generations. I think when we hire people for their strengths. We don't hire them just because we want warm bodies on a seat.
Yeah.
I think we hire them because somebody is a tech expert, somebody is an analytic expert, somebody knows banking, somebody does sales very well. And I think we've forgotten that basic. So there is a lot of who and how, like what Priti said about millennials.
Yeah.
We were a pain for our earlier generations.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an issue of that. I think it's an issue of tying up strengths of the people and how can you marry the two. So in our organization, what we have tried doing is creating an ecosystem where you have clusters, labs, where some of this creativity and innovation can be really unleashed. But at the same time, you have seniors who actually bring the values of sustainability. How do you kind of bring that emotional strength when a project fails? Because a project, if it fails in a year's time or 2 years' time, how do you find the next one? And how do you keep going? Do you just give up and run from one industry to another? Or do you kind of create your expertise in that segment? So we have tried kind of working that out. And one thing we can talk about later is on reverse mentoring and how do we use reverse mentoring very, very actively. Like I have a bunch of youngsters who teach me about the latest app, how to use a My Social page, how to kind of post. And at the same time, people from the management layers who can actually sit with them and talk to them about how do they kind of get the best value and the best credits out of what they do. So
I think sustenance is the key also as you're bringing Meenakshi.
Yes, yes.
And I think there's no one better than Jibong and Deepa can talk about a sector which will it sustain with all energy and all the things that we are talking. I think you must be sensing that on a daily basis.
I'm so used to these questions of
Yeah.
disbelief, but my conviction is very high. It's there to stay. But to a different point, yes, not 25 years old, not 100 plus years old. I'm just 4 years old. That's the brand which I represent, Jibong. We're just 4 years old. It's the youngest, one of the youngest organizations here maybe, and one of the youngest industries, so to say. I think what the anchor person earlier mentioned, for me it's not talking about what it is, what might be, but for me it is what it is because 99.99% of my population is today less than 35 years old or old. So I can actually count on my fingers who are the people in my company who are more than 35. So that's the backdrop of the context in terms of age demographics. I do believe that this, just stepping back, Yogesh, which you mentioned earlier, 2/3 of the, why we're discussing this topic. So 2/3 of country's population is going to be between 24 and 35 years in next 4 years' time. And it definitely is a different temperament when you have that mass walking into a workplace. And that temperament is going to be reflected in, it will have its manifestations in various forms. It's a more social population. It's a more, it's a more tech-savvy temperament. Diversity and women participation is going to be manifold higher. I'm sure it's going to have very, very different manifestations in all aspects of it. And of course, it's further impact on HR processes. And why is it important for us at Jibong? One is that my external customer, my customer is young and is representative of that, what people are saying or research maybe 10 years ago, what might be is what it is today for me. And that's what is reflecting for me to manage as my internal customer as well. So 80% of our buyers are in that age group. And so that's the backdrop of the context that, and which will have its corresponding challenges and processes and so on.
So I think I'll bring now short questions. The key thing which is coming is this workforce wants entrepreneurial culture. There are two kinds of organizations. One could be Jebong, one is large organization like yours. One is dealing with the pull between bureaucracy and entrepreneurial zeal. The other one is how to sustain and let it thrive as entrepreneurial workforce. How do you deal with it?
So I think you need to be obsessed. You need to be obsessed with creating and sustaining the culture that your workforce will thrive in. If I look at our history, we will celebrate 40 years on 11th August. But the effort invested in retaining the spirit that happened in a Barsati somewhere to start HCL is very alive in people inside the organization. As we've sort of transformed over the last 10 years and seen significant growth, what the employee first, customer second mindset has sort of led to is a sense of ownership around seeding, nurturing, and harvesting ideas, right, and really translating them into value for people. And to enable us to continue that outcome of making sure people feel they have the freedom to ideate, they have the freedom to take decisions, freedom to take action, becomes almost the mandate for what a lot of our leaders, and especially the people function and the HR function, become responsible for. So last year we delivered close to $600 million worth of value over and above the commercial contract signed with our clients for the benefit of our clients. I think so by putting very hard, tangible outcomes which demonstrate why the culture is of value, makes the spotlight much stronger to retain what makes an ideapreneurship stay alive. We actually call HCL the world's largest startup, yeah, because that's by labeling it like that, right, you keep it alive.
Right. So that's a fantastic set of examples on sustaining it. And
maybe
what
I'd just
about,
like to add, Yogesh.
yeah, I was going to come to you. In addition to what you're going to say, how you're fueling it and how you're making sure that it has far more firepower than when you started.
Yeah, and culture is again another well-researched and very interesting, and it again has its manifestations in terms of various aspects of policies and process, and of course a leadership style. Maybe some of the examples which I can, 20 years of HR experience having worked in large organizations and what I'm experiencing right now. Some, real life examples, maybe if I can pick up from leadership styles, So when Sanjeev joined in, 8 months back, and in a very formal, similar kind of a setting, we had our investors and so on. So all investors and all formal setting wearing blue and gray suits versus he wearing his bright orange shoes. So maybe that was like and he said orange is my favorite color, which was about representing his brand. So just one, and which set me thinking, because I used to own the dress code policy in my previous avatars, and how do I make that come to life in Jibong, for example. And then another thing, from a process and perspective, my hiring team has come up with a new offer letter or whatever, and they're saying, come dressed in your fashionable best. And then again, I was taken, and really thinking about it, that how does this come to? So these are like some small nuances of, one such example which I'm picking up, or its flexibility, which we all may be talking about in terms of part-time, full-time, working hours, crash, all those things which, in order to, but for us it was like doing away with punching, for example. So this is what, a particular leadership style, brought to table. I can give another example. Anant just joined in, of course, as you know that, Myntra, Flipkart, Jibong partnership just happened last week. And when I was walking up to him and asking him, and which can be a very, in terms of thinking through his cabin and his new workspace, etc. And he says, I don't need anything. I will just work out of a workstation in the bay. I said, that's fine. You will then use just a hot desk. I will not even allocate a workstation to you. So I'm just saying, versus maybe my previous avatar, so that's a big shift, which the leadership sets the tone for as far as ways of working and all of that is concerned. So there will be some part of it which the leadership will bring to table. There'll be some part of it which the industry and the temperament of the generation which you deal with will bring to table.
So I think leadership, when you bring in, a lot of leaders are starting businesses with a purpose in mind, and they are, going beyond the commercial returns only. And when I see talent joining me in healthcare, I have seen a lot of people saying, I want to work in healthcare because it has a noble purpose. Now, question is, how do you really tie this together? And also in the world of technology, I think, Meenakshi, you are running a business which is very, very old, and you have all kind of, checks and balances in banking about technology, and on the other hand, you have things like purpose. So in your business, and I'll come to Amita later, how do you deal with this, the area which is fuzzy, purpose, values, and on the other hand, using technology to engage them?
I'll probably, before I address all of that,
Yeah.
maybe I'll kind of
Sure.
take a step
Sure.
back. I think we have a 15-year-old son. So I wake up to this reality of, millennials and Gen Z every day. I think we shouldn't forget that most of us as parents, if you look at our generation who were born to the baby boomers, even in the Indian context, like Amita said, it's for them an environment of abundance, which means people like us have been actually very self-reliant, independent. We have tried, creating our own space. We have worked very hard to do that. Most of our generation is nuclear families. Most of us have one child. And that kind of has changed a lot of expectations. So it's like, helicopter parents, and then everything available, abundant, and they experiment everything. They can Google what is available to me is available to my son. And, all of us are kind of looking at it at the same time. So the same questions come up. So in some form, to your questions in terms of how do we kind of marry all of this? How do we keep the checks and balances, the regulated
Right.
environment? I think what the fundamental piece out over there is the cultural piece. The cultural piece from the perspective of when you said purpose for them today, and when we hire the graduates, is they ask me all kinds of questions. I think Deepa spoke about it in terms of diversity and inclusion. They ask me about philanthropy. They ask me,
Yeah.
what do you do in charity? What do you do for work-life balance? I don't think I ever asked those questions. I only asked, how much will you pay me? What is the job? But I think these are the questions that they are throwing on the table.
Absolutely.
And they are coming and saying, give me a larger purpose to connect to the society, to the community, and how do I make that change? So I think we do a lot of efforts in that space. I'm not even surprised that, we do about 40-50% of volunteering for our entire workforce without forcing a volunteering day. We just tell them that these are events, kind of show up, and people love it, and they want to come for it. If you talk about diversity and inclusion, they're pretty much there. They want to create the agenda. They want to talk about it. They want to make it a larger purpose for the organization. So in terms of them losing out when they fail on a project, I think these common cultural purposes ties them up very well. And from a technology perspective to your question, how do you use it? Very actively, we have created some of these labs in technology for trading platforms or for regulatory models that we create or valuations. And we make them leaders for each of those teams.
Okay.
So irrespective of having a manager, vice president, director, they are leaders and they're known as subject matter experts in
Great.
their space. So that
So
works
I
well.
think clearly I can sense that it's moving from employee EVP to something called, which I just coined right now, value exchange proposition. So it's actually becoming value exchange proposition. How do you tie in the workforce you get in and engage them at a value exchange proposition which really works for both? And you're in
So-
entertainment business. How do you
So,
do all that?
when people come and ask us during interviews that what is your CSR, and we say what we do is CSR. For us, our content is CSR. On an average, an Indian spends 3.5 hours in front of the television. So as an organization, we are and people connect with our product. It's not like you use something and a lot of time, the only time when you're mentally and emotionally engaged is when you're making the buying decision. But in our case, people sit with us, laugh with us, cry with us, feel emotional about it, feel upset about it. When something they like, they enjoy. There's something they don't like, they are upset about. Then they discuss after when they are out of the TV with their friends. So we always say that as an organization, our actually mission is that, inspire billion imaginations.
Right.
And we say that's our CSR. So we want to create, so come and create content, which, if we can inspire a generation, inspire society, inspire country to do something. So like our foray in sports, we actually, our vision for sports businesses that make India play. And we went and revived a sport called Kabaddi, which is absolutely, which no one was playing actually
Right.
when we were playing. But today, with Kabaddi being so, it's really come up. And, I'm seeing young generation playing. My kids are playing Kabaddi today in this thing. So through that, we actually say, so that's the way we connect to the purpose.
Fantastic.
But I also feel that, it's not just one size. As an HR leader, I see one size will not fit all. Even in the organization, you have to slice and dice. And we have a very, very different kind of an organization where there's a part of the business which is very creative, very emotional. They have a world of their own. And there is a part of the business which is very corporate, which is sales and finance and HR and all of that, and technology. How do you marry that? And around 6 years back, when we realized, when we came in and we were looking at that, I joined 7.5 years back, all creative people were also given very heavy laptops like everyone was given. Now, they don't know how to operate Excel, PowerPoint, Word. What do they do with laptop? And they're like lugging that laptop to everyday home and bringing it back. And we were in a meeting and we had actually just, we did complete digitization of backend. And I said, why should they be given a laptop? The only thing they're using the laptop for is sending and receiving emails and viewing content. They don't need. And we completely changed our technology policy to say everyone who is working in a creative world will be given an iPad, irrespective of the level, whether they are an executive or executive vice president. They will only be given laptops, iPads, and there will be few computers or laptops kept in the department in case they want to create a presentation or do some work. So I think, we need to, as leaders, need to completely slice and dice the organization and also look at how do we do things differently. Similarly, we have a very young sales force. Now, and we hire almost 70–80% people from non-media. So how do we teach them media? And we went completely to gamification. Our training and media understanding is through gamification. So I think we need to really look at, and it can't be one size fit all. It has to be look at different parts of your business and say how it will work, how we relate to the millennials.
I really want to connect that with you, Prithvi. You have something to connect with this, but I think the key issue I want to know from you and also Deepa is, fun, excitement, entertainment, social connect is the need of this generation. So how do you use technology platform and otherwise to make it come alive?
So, I think first of all, as I listen to ourselves speak, I think maybe we need to first of all reflect back that are we the wrong people to define the purpose and establish the dress code policy or define what kind of computers, are we the wrong people? And so there's a large experiment at HCL going on where we've actually created what we call employee first councils in every location. We've created employee network groups in every location responsible for the culture and employee engagement. We've created, so we're trying to move from what we started as a management-led, employee-embraced kind of policy and program and process mindset to a place where we want to be, which is more an employee-led, management-enabled environment. Because we believe that if you want to really power the workforce, you need to be more democratic.
Yeah.
So to your point about fun, engagement, etc., how does that come in? I think by first of all changing who sets the agenda, what is fun, what is if you ask me what is fun, I will be exactly what a 20-year-old thinks. But not everybody in my office.
No,
is
you
like
look
that.
it. You look it.
But
we experienced it.
So I think that's a big issue,
Yeah.
right? And the second piece on technology, ensuring, so what we are currently on a journey on is basically, first of all, saying that everything we develop has to be mobile first.
Yeah.
So if it's not on a mobile application, you don't start developing the tool or the functionality. Second of all, we are trying to make sure, and I think I heard this during the day today, is really create a platform where an employee from the moment he hears about HCL and says, oh, this is a company that exists, right through to the time where he wants to join the company, apply, go through the selection, go through orientation, go through training, get deployed on a project. He can do that on a single platform.
Brilliant.
And use predictive and prescriptive analytics to basically curate information to him or her that makes it easy for them to do so. And it's a journey, right? So I think we're moving away from where employee engagement was really about entertainment.
Absolutely.
To really to a place where we're saying employee engagement needs to be about, are you providing a distinctive employment experience? Because if that person's experience is distinctive, he will remain engaged with your company regardless of what else happens in the environment.
So what I'm sensing from everyone is that you guys are absolutely ready to take on large number of millennials. And I think it's a good field to end this panel discussion on. So thank you so much, and
Thank you,
thanks for
Yogesh.
being a great audience.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.